He tucked his daughters into bed, kissed them goodnight, and made sure that they never wake up again. He was the picture of a loving husband and a father, a man with a perfect family and perfect smile. He didn't snap, he planned it. Every lie, every fake interview, every tear that he shed were all part of his lies. He was a man who didn't see his family as the people he loved, but as obstacles that he had the need to erase from his life for literally no reason. This is Malaika's Case Walls, real horrors, real crimes. Christy Watts was born on May 16, 1985 in Spring Lake, North Carolina. He was like any other small town kid, reserved, polite, quiet, shy. People who knew him described him as shy, and he was a type of a person who would never raise his voice. And he grew up in a house that was well mannered, like he grew up in a house that didn't have any violence or abuse. He had a passion for cars, and later he started working as an oil field operator in Anadarko Petroleum in Colorado. Shanann Catherine Zhevsky was born on January 10, 1984 in New Jersey, and she grew up in Aberdeen, North Carolina. Unlike Chris, she was full of life. She was outgoing, she was confident, she was talkative. She was a woman determined to build the best life possible for herself and her family. She worked in marketing and direct sales, and eventually she became a team leader for a company named Level Thrive. She had social media where she often posted her family's milestones or positivity. But behind the smiles, she also suffered from lupus, a chronic autoimmune disease. She also mentioned how Chris used to help her get through her disease. In 2010, when the two met, it felt like fate. Two opposites who completed each other. And by 2012, the two got married, and they even had two daughters, Celeste and Bella. Shanann adored her family. She called them her whole world, unaware that the man she loved and trusted the most would one day take it all away. From the outside, Chris and Shanann looked like the perfect family alive. Their home sat in a quiet Colorado suburb, and their smiles lit up every photo. She shared every special moment, every birthday, every event. She captured that, and she used to share it on her social media. To the world, they were proof that love could survive anything. But behind those pictures, cracks were beginning to form. In 2015, just 3 years after the two got married, they filed for bankruptcy. They were buried under nearly $400,000 in debt. Mortgage payments, medical bills, car loans, it was all starting to become too much. While they smiled for Facebook, they were quietly struggling, and soon that financial stress turned into emotional distance. Shanann worked long hours for her Thrive business, and she was often traveling more for her company events. Chris, on the other hand, spent his days in oil fields, growing more emotionally distant and detached day by day. Her friends noticed the change, and soon Shanann did too. In text messages to a close friend, she wrote, "I don't know who he is anymore." Another message read, "He's not touching me, he's not talking, something's wrong." And still, she tried to fix it. In early 2018, Shanann discovered that she was pregnant again, and this time they were having a baby boy who they were planning to name Miko. She believed that this baby could bring the couple closer again, like this baby could save their marriage. But Chris, he was emotionless, he was distant. He looked at the woman that he once loved like a person who was a burden. She couldn't understand it. How the love of her life, how the father of her children was suddenly being so cold to her and their children. While she was busy in work and preparing for her pregnancy, she didn't realize that her man or her husband was falling for another woman. His attention was drifting elsewhere, to a woman or a co-worker named Nicole Kessinger, who was working at the same oil company that he was working in. Nicole was a smart, independent, and energetic woman, and she thought that Chris was single since he lied and told her that him and his ex-wife or wife were divorced, like they were separated and they were still figuring things out. But we all know that was not the case. Two met in 2018. At work, their conversations started innocent, small talk, laughter, shared lunches, but later it started to develop into something else. Late night calls, hidden texts, night meetups. Nicole said that Chris apparently seemed gentle and kind and he seemed ready to start over. She didn't know that he still had a wife and children. While Shanann was in North Carolina visiting family for the summer, Chris was with Nicole. He went on dates with her. He spent the weekends with her. He was living a double life. He used secret phone apps or photo apps, whatever it's called. He was cheating on his own wife. He deleted messages, he was having phone apps, and he told Shanann that he was busy with work. During those weeks, Shanann sensed that something was deeply wrong. She texted her friend saying that he hasn't called to say goodnight to the girls. I feel like I'm losing him. I feel like he doesn't want this baby. When she returned home from her trip, Chris barely looked at her. He barely touched her. He didn't even talk to her. Like, he didn't even acknowledge her. He had already made up his mind. By the time Shanann was planning their baby's gender reveal, he was already imagining a life without her and without their children. At exactly 1:48 a.m., 34-year-old Shanann returned home to Frederick, Colorado from a business trip to Arizona. Her co-worker, Nicole Atkinson, had kindly driven her back home that night, and her husband, Chris, had spent the weekend with their children. The next morning, something felt off. Shanann wasn't answering her calls, her texts, and she even missed her OBGYN appointment. And when she missed her important meeting that day, that was when Nicole's worry turned to panic. At around 12:10 p.m., Nicole drove to the Watts residence to check up on her friend. She saw Shannon's car over there, but there was no sign of her. She rang the doorbell, knocked on the door. She called, but nothing was there. There was no answer at all. Concerned, Nicole reached out to Chris, who claimed to be at work. Then she contacted the police department, the Frederick Police Department, for a welfare check. At approximately 1:40 a.m., police arrived. Chris came later to unlocking the door and allowing the police to search. Inside, the scene was strangely still. Shannon's purse, her medication, her keys, they were all left behind. Her ring was on the bedside table. Her phone was found between two couch cushions. Their dog was unharmed, but Shanann and their two children were missing.
Immediately call police. I can't get a hold of her. I've called, I've texted. Her car's in the garage. Her shoes she wears every single day are right in the front door. The police body cam video shows Chris Watts arriving home. Imagine his surprise at finding cops already at his house. Phone here? Her phone's here. She also discovers Shanann's purse. That's her purse. It's her medication. She takes these, her medication's still in here.
By the next day, the FBI and Colorado Bureau of Investigation had joined the search. Chris claimed that he had no idea where his family was. He said that the last time he saw his wife was around 5:15 a.m. He even appeared on local news, begging and pleading for his family's return, but something about his detached, distant behavior was not right. Like, the people who are watching the news, the audience, they knew that something was not right. They could feel it.
He pretends to be distraught over the disappearance of his family.
I can't imagine what you're going through right now.
The house, I couldn't sleep at all last night. I missed him throwing chicken nuggets at me, honestly, last night.
What was it like to meet him in person?
Very surreal. At times when he would talk about the murders, his eyes would turn so black. He just would get a different look on his face, and he talked about it so nonchalantly, like, going down to get a cup of coffee.
As the hours passed, what began as a missing person case started to turn into something darker. Detectives and investigators noticed that Chris seemed too calm, like he showed little emotion. There was no panic, there was no urgency, and even neighbors who had seen him that morning told the police that something was wrong. One neighbor even shared footage of his doorbell camera. Chris was spotted over there backing his truck into the garage, which was something he never did before, at around 5 a.m. in the morning.
Because of Nicole, his story is already falling apart. And this is the moment Watts realizes he was caught on a neighbor's surveillance camera backing his pickup truck into his driveway. Out of view of the camera, he is loading the 3 bodies on the truck. Out of Watts' hearing, his neighbor tells police he is suspicious.
He looks like he's trying to cover his tracks.
Chris Watts looks as if his world is about to collapse.
During interviews, his story began to shift. At first, he said he had no idea where his family went. Then later, he hinted that Shanann might have left with the kids. But the investigators were not convinced. Inside the house, they found things that Shanann would have never left behind. Credit cards were not used. There were no texts or messages sent from Shannon's phone. There were no bags packed. It was all starting to get a little too suspicious. Behind the scenes, detectives were already narrowing in on Chris. They didn't believe him, so they invited him over for a polygraph test. Chris didn't think much of it and he agreed to it without hesitation, which is what is gonna reveal his reality. On August 15, 2018, just 2 days after his family vanished, he went to the Frederick Police Department to give the polygraph test. As the test began, Agent Tammy Lee from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation sat across from Chris to take the test. Her tone was calm, almost friendly, but every question that she asked was a step closer to the truth. She asked if he knew where his family might have gone or if he'd been lying about what happened that morning. She even asked if he had maybe physically assaulted Shanann.
Did you physically cause Shanann's disappearance?
No.
When the test ended, Agent Lee clearly told him that he had failed. The test showed clear signs of deception. That was when the gentle questioning stopped and the detectives pressed harder. Chris's composure started to crack. He still insisted that Shanann might have taken the kids somewhere, but the detectives didn't believe him. His body language clearly told another story. Finally, then, investigators brought in his father, Ronnie Watts, and that was when Chris broke.
Confronted with inconsistencies in his story, Watts asked to speak to his father and whispered his confession as police watched from another room.
Even though the shameless man had been caught, he still tried one last attempt to redirect or change the narrative to his own liking. He claimed that after he told Shanann that he wanted to separate, she had killed the children, and in a fit of rage, he had strangled her. It was a story that even shocked his father, but the detectives knew that it didn't add up. The later on postmortems of Shanann and both the children revealed that it was Chris who had killed his family himself. Within hours, Chris Watts was placed under arrest. What began as a missing person case now turned into one of the most chilling family annihilation cases in modern history. The investigators remembered that during questioning, Chris had mentioned the remote job sites there, and of course, they had to check up over there. The site was isolated and empty, and when the recovery team and the police arrived over there, they found what they were basically expecting, but still it was a horrific sight because they found a shallow grave near oiling tanks, and in that shallow grave was none other than Shanann Watts, and she was still wearing the same clothing that she'd been wearing the last time she was seen. Nearby were two enormous oil tanks, and it was filled with thousands of gallons of crude oil. And in those two tanks, were the bodies of Celeste and Bella, both of them just aged 3 and 4. It was such a cruel act. He forced his own daughters into the narrow opening. The opening was only 8 inches wide. The sheer brutality of what he had done even left seasoned investigators shook. When he'd been confronted later with the evidence of what he had done, he finally broke down and he told them what he had done. He had apparently had an argument with Shanann that night, and he had strangled her while she'd been 15 months pregnant with their unborn son, Nico. Later, when Bella and Celeste woke up, they asked him where their mother was, and he lied, saying that she was fine. Then he drove alive to that same site where he buried their bodies, right? He drove them there alive, killed them one by one, and then fit their bodies into the oil tanks. It was the kind of evil that felt almost impossible to process. The same man who had been begging and pleading for his family to return on local news had been the man who had taken his family away from this world. As investigators dug deeper into his life, they found out that obviously he'd been having an affair with a co-worker, Nicole Cassinger, and he'd been living a double life all this time. Nicole told the police that she had believed what Chris had been telling her, that he was a single dad ready to start a new life.
Why would you wipe out your family to be with me?
The just-released video shows 30-year-old Nicole Kessinger being interrogated.
Did you ever say anything to him about, like...
Never.
Anything about his kids being a problem? Anything about his wife being a problem?
Never. This shocked me just as much as I think it shocked the rest of the world.
She breaks down, sobbing over the gruesome fate of the children, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste.
He's so disgusting. I'm so ashamed of him.
Why? How? I don't even understand how you could, like, bring yourself to do that to somebody who's, like, that big.
He told her every lie that she had believed and that she wanted to hear. They spent weekends together, took romantic trips, texted constantly, even though Shanann had been desperately texting her husband, begging him to talk to her. For Chris, the affair became a fantasy life for him. A life without responsibilities, without debt, without kids, without wife. And to make that fantasy real, he felt that he had to erase his past instead of simply divorcing his wife and giving the custody of the kids to her. When he'd been confronted with the evidence, the GPS location, text messages, phone data, he obviously had no more lies left to tell. He was charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder, 1 for Shanann, 2 for each of the girls, and 2 more for the point of the 2 girls being under the age of 12. He was also charged with an unlawful termination of a pregnancy and tampering with the deceased body. He pleaded guilty to all the charges to avoid death penalty. A few weeks later, he had now 5 prison sentences without the possibility of a parole. In prison, he finally revealed that Shanann had never killed the children. He was the one who killed all 4 of them together. And when he was confronted, when asked why, he gave an answer that made no sense. He said he felt trapped, as if his own family, as if the people who loved him were the ones standing in his way. Today, Chris Watts serves his sentence in Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin. Nicole Kessinger, on the other hand, had gone underground. She had changed her names, tried to change her identity soon after the case broke. The case became the focus of national television. Shows like Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil analyzed every detail. His lies, his body language, his hidden life. Experts and profilers tried to decode what could drive a man to end his own family. But even behind bars, Chris wasn't done revealing the full truth. Inside Edition uncovered a series of letters that he had written to a pen pal. Over there, he confessed that everything had been premeditated. He had given Shanann OxyContin to try and end her pregnancy, believing it's gonna make it easier for him to be with his mistress. He also revealed that he had tried to smother his daughters at home before driving them to the oil site, but he failed. Even after Chris Watts was sentenced, this story still managed to haunt the whole world. It is one of the most horrifying American cases. It is one of the most true crimes in America. It is retold, it is re-examined, it is reimagined through many films and documentaries. Chris Watts didn't just take lives. He destroyed an entire world that was never his to touch in the first place. Shanann built that home. She worked for it. She fought for it. She poured her heart into every piece of it. Those 2 little girls, Bella and Celeste, they were not his, they were hers. And baby Nico, he never even got the chance to open his eyes. Those 3 children were hers. They were not his, they were hers. They were her reason to keep on going in life, even though everything felt heavy for her. While the world remembers Chris as a tragedy in a father's and husband's disguise, Shannon's name deserves more than just pity. She deserves more than sympathy. She was strong, she was ambitious, even though the man beside her had already given up on her. He planned every move, every lie, every excuse, and for what? Just for some useless fantasy that was built on betrayal? To erase the people who gave his miserable, useless life purpose? But no matter how many lies he told, the truth would always belong to Shanann, to Celeste, to Bella, to Nico. They are the story, not Chris. And even after Chris Watts rots behind bars, her family's names will and should be remembered with love and not just fear.